Robert, I'm happy to see you after the Olympiad in Budapest. And of course, there were upsets. And it is time for the underdog again. What's the underdog today, Robert?
Round one, that's the place to be if you're looking for an underdog. So many underdogs, in fact, because it's the round with the most big rating gaps in this event. And well, we are having a look at a game played in the match between gold medalists in Chennai 2022 from Uzbekistan and Trinidad and Tobago. So that's board two. White is Quinn Cabralis, rated 2169. And he's playing against Nodirbek Yakubboev, 2666. So it's almost 500 rating points difference. I could have selected even a bigger rating gap between two players from other matches, but I think this game is really spectacular. And well, we have
Nice.
so I have some ideas I would like to discuss with you. It's towards the end, but I mean the start of the game is probably even more exciting. So that's my pick for this episode. So shall we start?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I also like that you're taking a look at all the games and pick out the ones who are interesting. So all of us who are watching also have a little learning effect, which we always do in your shows anyway. So
Exactly. Okay, let's go. 1e4.
good
We have the
move.
Sicilian defense, knight f3, d6. It's the open variation, and we have a Najdorf. And now you can see that a white player, he is 29 years old. He is rated 2669 for a long period of time. So he's a good player, but it's not like he is going to improve a lot. But I can see that he had been studying a bit of his openings because he picks a line with Rook G1, which has become
Ah,
quite fashionable. And well, his idea is super aggressive as he wants to go for G4, G5 and kick the knight away. And black goes for the sharpest reply as black ignores the threat, plays b5 himself. And now white plays the move a4. So we get a very sharp game, hitting the pawn. Black advances the pawn to b4 to attack the knight on c3. And the knight comes to d5. And well, there are various options. I mean, the line we are discussing, it's not forced by any means. But black's approach with this advance of the b pawn is to attack that knight. And here the pawn on e4 can be taken, which is something black doesn't have to do. But it's let's say the most principled way of playing. And white says, okay, there's no immediate tactic, but simply aiming for development lead. So bishop
wow.
comes to c4.
Yeah,
And
and
here
I guess if you're like the better player and then you just take the pawn and say like you got to prove it to me.
yeah, exactly. That could be one approach. It's personally not the type of approach I would have gone for. I would have preferred to chicken out somehow, get a game, maybe not an advantage, but in the long run, you can
Oh.
prove your real strength. Now there's always a bit of risk. It can work out well just to grab the material. On the other hand, we will see what can happen also.
Okay.
Black played the move e6 to attack the knight, and if the knight goes away, then probably the pawn will come to d5 to attack the bishop and support the knight. Then black is able to stabilize the situation in the center.
Mhm.
But the key move is queen e2. You're ignoring the threat, and you do hit the knight on e4. And well, the key point is that if you
Okay.
take on d5, the knight is defended, but not for long. There is bishop takes, and then both the rook and the knight are hanging, so white is going to regain the piece. So the knight on d5 cannot be taken, but yeah, it's a tricky position, especially when you don't really have prepared for it. Apparently, this is still fine for black, and according to theory, the best move is to go knight c5. Has even been played once in a game by world champion Ding. However, the move chosen by Yakubboev seems pretty natural to me as well. Like the knight going back to f6 feels like the knight is quite stable there, and you do intend to swap the knights. But white continues with aggressive play with the move bishop g5.
That's the move I thought of. Yes.
pinning the knight on f6. The pawn on e6 is pinned because of the queen on e2. So black goes for the most natural move, bishop e7, to unpin. And after knight takes bishop, queen takes, white castles queenside. So here at move 13, white has managed to complete his development. Just for one pawn, fantastic pieces on nice squares. They're open files.
Yeah.
For the major pieces, although there are no immediate threats yet. But okay, let's see what happens. h6, questioning the bishop. Of course, you do hope white's going to take, which didn't happen. Bishop just goes back to h4. And now, when you're looking at a position, you really want to complete your development as black. Like, for instance, a move like castling kingside is the move you want to play.
Yeah.
But it runs into knight f5. And now the queen is unprotected. So you can't take. And at least after the queen moves away, you can take on d6. You regain your pawn. But you can also feel how great white's pieces are.
So castling would be a blunder, literally.
Yeah, it's not a good move, but it's actually quite difficult to suggest a good idea. In the game, rook a7 was played, which does look odd, but you understand now the idea of it, because the rook is protecting the queen, so you're preparing to castle. However, white continues with what he's doing. All the pieces are developed, so now it's time to bring up some pawns with the move f4. A nice move, with the point that if black would castle now, then you play the move g4. And you're ready to go g5. And because of that pawn on h6, you have a hook. You are opening the g file. Maybe you can double rooks later on.
Yeah.
The pressure is huge. So black still refrained from castling here. Decided to develop the rook in quite an original way to c7. So the minor pieces are still on their initial squares. And now the rook goes to e1, rook g e1. Again, looking at that king on e8. Black played here the move d5, which is a questionable decision. What would you play here, Arne? Any idea? And for you viewers, of course, this is also your chance to come up with a brilliant idea for white.
I wonder how good knight to... Gosh, my coordinate wisdom is so low. Knight f5 is working.
Knight f5 is... it's a very interesting move. Was not played, but a very similar idea was played in the game, with the aim of opening up the e-file and to prove that the queen and king are quite vulnerable there.
Oh, okay. So is it just the pawn going to f5? No, cannot be.
No,
That's
well, your
too
bishop
slow.
is hanging.
Yeah, exactly. That is interesting.
I give you one more try.
Okay, thank you. You at home too, hopefully trying as well. No, I think... Wait, that took a while. Well, you can just take, right, with the bishop.
You can take because the knight is still pinned. If
So
you
easy.
take the bishop, then the queen goes away, and tremendous pressure. I mean, the line even continues here. You may consider something like bishop e6. At least there is the move f5. You will win back the piece very soon, but still, white's pieces are exerting a lot of pressure. So that's something you don't wanna do. And I'm wondering if this was actually overlooked by Yakubboev, or it was his intention anyway. But at least white has won his pawn back. Black didn't accept the piece sacrifice, went with the queen to d6, attacking the bishop, also attacking the pawn on f4, which is quite an interesting resource. But white has a lot of different ways of playing. White was actually at this point a lot of time up on the clock, and started to think here for 35 minutes.
Wow.
And in the end, played an interesting move, but probably not the best one.
As so often, right? You think for ages and then you still don't make the best move.
Yeah, well, it's kind of tricky because you want to save your bishop on d5, but you also don't want to allow black to take on f4 because then there's this double attack. However, one interesting idea is just to go back with the bishop to f3.
Okay.
allow that capture, this double attack. King goes away. And if you do take on h4, there's this powerful move, queen e5, hitting the rook. And if rook goes away, still the knight on b8 is in trouble. For instance, one interesting idea is that if you go rook c4, you may consider taking the knight, but even better is to put your knight on f5
Ooh.
again to hit the queen and to well, threaten basically everything, like knight d6 with a knight fork taking on g7. This is just absolutely crushing.
Hmm.
But okay, not easy to calculate, of
No.
course. So white in the end played bishop g3, which is in a way logical. Knight takes d5 was played, and now white's plan was to follow up with f5, so that the bishop hits the queen. Queen goes away. Bishop takes c7. Now there are two possible recaptures, but if you do take with the queen, then white can also take with a pawn on e6, and very soon the e file will be opened.
Yeah.
So black decided to take here with the knight, and now very impressive play by Quinn Cabralis. He played queen c4, exerting more pressure on the knight, opening up the path for the rook, attacking the pawn on e6. And black now decided to finally get out of the center with his king. But can you see another huge blow? It feels like black has finally managed to
Stabilize.
stabilize a bit, indeed. But there's another huge blow here for white.
Is there... So I'm wondering if f6 is an interesting move because...
Fantastic,
Ah,
fantastic.
okay. Nice.
Because you cannot take with the queen, yeah? You want
Yeah.
to deflect the queen, then the knight on c7 is hanging. But how about taking with the pawn?
Now there must be a rook shift. I mean, this just looks so open. There must be something. Oh, knight f5 again.
Knight f5, fantastic. Attacking the queen, knight cannot be taken. If the queen goes somewhere and there's not a good square, then the main point is to swing over with the queen to g4 and give checkmate on g7.
Wow.
Brilliant line. So f6 is probably a move which was also overlooked by black. Decided here
Unbelievable.
to go back with the queen to d8
Oh,
to keep the knight defended, but here also the king's position will be opened.
oh goodness.
Pawn takes g7.
On the brink of losing.
Yeah. I mean, white is making a lot of progress here. If you take the pawn, there is, for instance, knight f5.
Easy.
Discover check. If you take the queen, and at the end of the day, there's also still that knight hanging. Everything is going to be lost. So instead of capturing the pawn on g7, rook e8 was played. But now this, knight takes e6. Discovered attack on the queen, so you can't really take the knight.
Wow.
Black took on d1.
What?
With the idea that if you take with the king, there's still knight takes e6. So all of a sudden we have this material balance of three minor pieces against the queen. And that's always an interesting clash. Yeah? If the pieces can work together, they are better. In other cases, the queen is better. Queen went to h4 here. So there is this plan to take on h6 and to deliver mate on h8. For instance, if you take the pawn with your king, it's queen g3 with a double attack. So here you see that unprotected pieces, they are a big problem in general.
Yes.
Black played this interesting idea of h5. Looks strange because the pawn can be captured, but it does have a clear idea because black is going to give a check here to be able to move the knight very soon. Now the king gotta watch out. Don't go to e2 because it runs into knight f4.
That's
This
not
is
a
one
good idea, no.
little trap. But the king, of course, goes to c1. The king is safe here. And now there is knight takes g7 with tempo. That's the difference. So you were about to lose the pawn on the h file anyway, and this time you're hitting the queen. So the queen got a move, goes to g5, hits the rook. And knight comes out to c6. So black is trying to consolidate by keeping everything protected. But how do you continue here with white? Any idea?
Let's see. Is it So my idea is, because there's no real threats here, either the rook shift to e3 or the pawn to h4. But both are slow.
Yeah, but there's
Yeah.
nothing faster here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are no checks. So combining these ideas is actually very good plan. Rook e3 was played.
Okay.
So if the rook comes to g3, then it's almost mate. So
Trouble.
bishop goes to f5, rook g3, threatening that mate. Bishop interferes, and now you bring up another resource with h4, and h5 is going to be played. Rook e8, h5 anyway, and you got to understand that you cannot really take with a knight. It runs into queen takes h5, and the bishop is pinned, so can't take the queen. Black's idea of the last move, rook e8, was here to meet this move h5 with rook e5.
Okay.
Attacking the queen. And this is a big moment in the game, because you can imagine after such a very tense game with so many lines to be calculated, players were getting lower on time. They are down to 1 minute each, and this is a critical moment for White in the game. What would you play here?
Just thinking. I mean, there is almost an option to simplify this by taking the bishop with the pawn. If rook takes the queen, we take the pawn with the check, and then we take the rook back. So
You know, this actually reminds me of one of the games from Gukesh
yeah.
in the Olympiad. Yeah, I think it was this a crucial game, Gukesh against Vailly. And well, Gukesh was playing with the two knights, and these knights, they maneuvered fantastically to support a passed pawn.
Yeah.
Here, that in this case, it's not going to happen. But it's a little bit too much. White can play for a win, but there is something better. So let's go back to that position
Okay.
at e5. Because you're playing with the queen, and it helps to think about general concepts. Like when you're playing with the queen, you're looking for ways to create new threats, to hit the most vulnerable points in the opponent's position.
I understand. So what would be with queen f6?
Queen f6 was played in the game,
Oh,
so you're attacking the knight. If the knight moves, then the rook will be hanging. But the problem is there's rook e6.
yeah, that I saw
Counter-attack.
too.
The queen got to move again to g5. And well, the threat of breaking through on the g file is still there. So black went back with rook to e5. And here the players just agreed to a draw. It was a repetition of moves, and which is already quite a big upset in itself. But this was also a missed chance for Cabralis, who could have won the game here with just a very nice little tactical idea. Because I'm going to help you. Apart from the bishop, which is under threat, the two most vulnerable points in black's position are both the king and the unprotected knight. And here you can set up an attack against both pieces, but you need to pick the right square for the queen. So that brings us to which move?
I still don't know, to be this is I
And
mean,
maybe you cannot reach that goal in one move, but you should give yourself two moves to get there.
okay. So, okay, in this thank you. That's the help I needed. That's queen g4, right?
Queen g4, very nice, because black still gotta do something about the bishop. If you take with the pawn on, sorry, if you
Yeah.
take with the rook the pawn, there is queen c8. That was the main idea. Next move, you're picking up the knight, then it's a queen versus two minor pieces. That's a technical win. So that's not really recommended. But the critical attempt here is to take with the knight on h5. You can still give the check on c8, the double attack. The king goes away. But what do you play here? Final shot.
Well, okay, our rook is hanging, so we just what do we do here? So we just take the bishop and then the knight.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's you shouldn't allow black to
No.
take the rook on g3. So you eliminate the bishop, you take back, queen takes c6. Here, this endgame is winning very easily because you take the pawn and then create another queen very soon. So yeah, I'm wondering. I mean, players were low on time. It could be that White was relieved to make a draw against such a superstar anyway. That's one thing. It could also be that he missed this idea with rook takes g6. That's one idea. It could also be that he completely forgot about dropping back with the queen. Just a backwards move in itself is quite difficult anyway. Unfortunately, I cannot read the mind of the white player in this case. But I thought it was very interesting game, and it shows that if you're not afraid, you try to give your best, play sharp theoretical lines. You can put even super stars under huge pressure, and this was a narrow escape for Yakubboev.
Yes, once again proven how those interesting openings, even with the rook to g1, which is a bit more modern, as you mentioned. I'm not sure if we watched it in one of our games already, but it is, it's a very interesting move, and giving away the pawn. Yeah, normally it doesn't work against stronger players when I do that because they just take me apart. But yeah, sometimes it can give the initiative, and it can be enough.
Indeed.
That was a clear underdog. So how did Cabralis do in the rest of the tournament? Was this?
Yeah, that's also interesting. I looked it up, and he was performing around his rating. He won a few rating points. Yakubboev recovered, and he played some important games, but he had a small rating loss, so that was not a big deal. But yeah, that's the real underdog. Yeah, I mean, the white player, he's a good player, but it's not like we will hear in many years from him like he's a superstar. He had just a day of his life. He had the chance to crush a super GM, which unfortunately for him didn't happen. But who knows? Maybe next time he tries it again.
Yes, let's hope for that. Robert, super instructive, super interesting, fun games. Yeah, a pity the Olympiad is over. It was a blast for the chess-based team who was there too. Yeah, and plenty of underdog food, as you mentioned already. You can all check this out on the live chess-based database, of course. And yeah, you just look at the news, and there's some upsets pointed out, of course. Yeah, great, Robert. I hope to see you soon, my friend. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We see each other for another episode of The Underdog next month. Until
See you
then.
next time.